Kia ora everyone, this is our project.
Bringing collaboration into the 21st century.
I'm John Turner.
And I'm Matt Haynes, and we're both teachers from the mighty Otahu College in South Auckland. John is a English teacher, and I am a Geography and Social Studies teacher.
So we decided to choose this whakatauki to show our philosophy behind this project, about our successes being part of a success of a collective, which we think really encapsulates the idea behind building collaborative learning.
Part 1, critical reflection of our teaching practice.
So we chose to use the 21st century skill rubric, and the skill that we chose to focus on is collaboration. This skill relates to the New Zealand curriculum in 3 ways: relating to others, participating, and managing self.
So why is collaboration such an important skill? Out of all the ITL skills, we picked collaboration simply because we think it's the most important. And you can see here, quoted from SRI International, who worked alongside Microsoft Education, they make some very important points here about the fact that the traditional format of education is not setting our students or our learners up for the real world. Today's world, people will expect to work for organisations or companies that could be collaborating with other organisations around the world. So it's vital we're teaching this skill today in the 21st century.
So we looked at different stakeholders that are affected by our practice and the teaching of collaborative skills, and the first and probably arguably the most important group is students. So students often groan when group work is introduced but then go on to enjoy some aspects of it. They also talk about how there's very unequal input from students, so one will take the lead, do most of the work, the other's happy to sit back, watch and talk.
Our second stakeholder group, and this is a really interesting one, are the teachers. We found just having an informal discussion with our colleagues over the last week to find out their views on group work, and there's a very common trend. So some of the more interesting points here: often feels as though most of the class aren't learning, lots of noise and activity, but hard to judge how much of it is learning related. I often end up giving students the answers at the end of the lesson to make sure they learn. So there are definitely some pretty concrete preconceptions from teachers about collaborative pedagogy.
And the last stakeholder group that we focused on is senior and middle management. So this group is often quite results focused. So how are we doing at NCA? We'll have a morning tea if we get merits and excellences. They can see group work as disruptive to the usual expectations, and they have a perception that a quiet lesson indicates student engagement, whereas one when kids are walking around talking, they are probably not engaged in the work.
Looking at these 3 stakeholders, it's clear to see that there are some pretty concrete viewpoints, philosophies, perceptions, and John and myself intend to try and break through these.
So yeah, there's some of the common problems between them we could see is there's unequal workload between members, but we did wonder if that's actually a problem if the work gets done.
There's a real uncertainty of how much learning has taken place. I find it scary doing group work because often it's really hard to formatively assess through the process and see how much learning has taken place. We still focus very much on the individuals, even though it is a group setting. How much have the individuals benefited from the group task?
Yeah, another one is the perception of lost control. So teachers will often look around and the class is noisy and you're not really sure what's going on, and it's quite hard to think of yourself as a teacher anymore.
And another important factor is it can be really disappointing when you set a group task and there is an end goal and most of the groups don't meet that within the time limit. And potentially this is another area we need to stop looking at the outcome and look more at the process.
So our hoped pedagogical outcomes from our project. Effective collaboration helps to build learning, increase interpersonal communication, and it's an invaluable skill in the 21st century. So our outcomes are, we hope to, by being able to build effective collaborative skills in the classroom via our chosen medium of small group work, we'll begin to create student-centred learning environment as opposed to teacher-led model where the students are passive receptors of information. So as part of my current practice with collaboration, One activity I tried to do is having students reorganising plot points from a movie and pasting them onto a poster. So they're very eager to cut the plot points out, but one student in most of the groups did the organising, and it took a lot of teacher prompting from me for it to be completed. So I was really walking around telling them almost what to do. So there was a lack of student engagement, lack of interdependence between students, and a limited understanding of the learning goals of the activity.
We also, over the last week, collected a little bit of data through surveys with two of our classes. So one Year 10 English class and one Year 9 Social Studies class. And there were a total of 42 students. And we asked two questions. So the first one, as you can see here, is how often do you feel you do group work at Otahu College? And we asked them this not just in our classes, but in all of their classes. And looking at the data there it's a very striking picture to be seen. Now the next question we asked was we wanted to get the students' feelings on group work, and this is maybe not as dramatic as the last graph, but we can see here that students have views about how working in a group affects their learning, and 9 students actually said they believe group work has a negative impact on it. Now, reflecting on those students, and John and myself discussed this afterwards, we actually think that those students are the ones who just genuinely don't particularly like the company of others and enjoy working by themselves, and we're probably just trying to prove a point. And I think these are some of the students we really need to target to get them into that mode of collaborative learning.
So yeah, we chose a bit of research to help guide us and support our project. So Alice in 2005 had a list of advantages, and one of those is that there's an increase in learning. Bishop et al., they hold that teaching of Māori and Pacifica learners requires moving from the traditional transmission type of classroom to a more interactive classroom. And Spiller talks about Pacific learners as well, so that's really important for us in our school, which has a 80% Pacific student rate.
Now to our collaborative innovation proposal. We've decided to create a collaborative task, and we wanted to underpin it with some frameworks that we've encountered from the Mind Lab. This is the ITL rubric from SRI International and Microsoft Education, and you can see here that there are 4 levels of collaboration. So we want to start by requiring students to work in groups, but then we actually want to expand on that so students have responsibility and can make substantive decisions together. If we can reach the last stage of students working interdependently, then I think that will be a massive success for our time doing this. Another underpinning model is the SAMAR model from Dr. Puente Dura. Puente Dura has developed 4 levels of ICT use, which starts from substitution and goes right through to redefinition. So the first stages are substitution and augmentation. Substitution is simply substituting technology for a pen and paper, and this is obviously going to be very easy for us to do. We want to be moving towards the augmentation and modification levels throughout this process, and once again, if we can start to get towards redefinition, then hooray.
So our proposed plan, so we want to create a collaborative learning activity for small groups, and these are the key points around our plan. So our target students are classes of Year 9 and Year 10, low ability, social studies and English classes. And so the plan is for them to collaboratively make a slideshow on PowerPoint or Google Slides. And so we'll be able to use that software to monitor that there is shared responsibility, and in the end result they will be using a screen capture software to turn the slideshow into a short video.
As you can see here, this is an activity that I intend to use with my social studies Year 9 class. Take a second to have a look through this.
So how does our model compare with alternatives? So currently most classwork and assessments are done on paper and individually, and attempts at group work has generally proved futile. A close colleague of ours wrote in an email, "These students make group work very difficult. I usually come away from it feeling like a crappy teacher and exhausted." Our current group work activities lack ICT, and therefore the collaborative aspect of making substantive decisions is greatly impaired. We hope that the use of software will allow for greater interdependence.
We also had to think about other possible innovations other than using ICT to make videos. We discussed the idea of creating a website There were some pros. Obviously, this is a major real-world skill that students would benefit from. The cons is that our school potentially lacks the resources to implement this strategy, and definitely many of our students lack the ICT in their homes. And also a big one is the fear and anxiety from students and teachers of the unknown. And another possible innovation is to actually work collaboratively with students from other schools, cities, countries. So with regards to the previous example of a Kiribati climate change video, we could actually be getting the students to work collaboratively with students from Kiribati. And that would obviously encourage a greater level of interdependence between learners, and we should be hitting the redesign level of the SAMAR model. The cons of this, it seems like a really difficult thing to do simply because of the time and effort taken to actually build these relationships with other schools, and for schools in varying parts of the world to coordinate their teaching and learning programs.
Conclusion. We will be implementing our plan over the next 2 to 3 weeks, and we're looking forward to it.
Thanks for watching our video. This presentation was by John Turner and Matthew Haynes of Otahuhu College.
And here's our bibliography. Enjoy.